Roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon.
Mr. Armstrong?
Here.
Ms. Caparelli?
Here.
Mrs. Charlton?
Here.
Mrs. Hancock?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mrs. Notbush?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is public comment, and I do have a card here from Mr. Vitek, please, if you, am I saying that right?
Close enough.
Close enough.
Close enough. I'll answer to
You say
anything.
Chris, right? Okay.
Right. Wow, first on the agenda, how cool. But board, please, thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. Some of you know already that there's a serious issue with the bus company. Hence my comments tonight. I've been in contact with Mr. Balderman over at the high school, Mr. Weck, and even Miss Anderson. And they're all great people to work with. And they're trying so hard to accommodate the issue. But what it is, there's an ongoing issue, a problem that you all are aware of with the high school bus route number 2, which is kind of the north of Naperville Road, Chicago Avenue, out in that area. Being that the drivers don't show up at all, or they're excessively late. Granted, I only live around the corner. My daughter's bus is supposed to be there at 7:05. She gets there about 7 o'clock. She regularly calls me at 7:30. Do I have to wait here any longer? I was like, no, go home, I'll take care of it. So far, almost every single day that she has missed this year has been due to the buses. I hate to say it that way. As you all know, I'm a fair person. That is absolutely unacceptable. And I know, Miss Anderson is really trying hard. I do know that because I've talked to her several times on the telephone. It's still, the bus company's actions are unacceptable. I wish there were more parents here tonight because I know there are more. There's been talk, including on tonight's agenda, about possibly renewing or not renewing their contract for next year. First, I would urge you not to. We're talking about the future of the contract, but what I need to know is what are we, and I'll be glad to step in and help as much as I can. What are we going to do today? My daughter takes 3 to 4 AP classes at the high school per quarter. She misses a day, that's a penalty on her. Not by the teachers, but by her learning. She has to make up time, make up the class, make up homework. And it's not because she doesn't want to do it. She wouldn't be an AP student if she didn't want to do it. It's not fair to her. So there's been also talk, from Miss Anderson, that they're, have some financial penalties towards the bus company. Okay, what about the financial penalties to me? I have to take unpaid time off of work, unpaid, to make sure that my daughter gets to school. That's not fair to me. That's not fair to my family. Their inadequacies are, again, unacceptable, and something must be done. More so, hopefully, when it comes under discussion, I unfortunately won't be here for that, but decisions will be made about the remainder of this year, not next year. Next year is next year. We still have, if I'm not, about 2 months or so left of school. What about the next 2 months? What are we going to do? Now, I've been told that there's a contract with the bus company. Obviously, them not showing up, them being excessively late, they're in breach of that contract. That needs to be addressed with them. I ask you all just to consider getting, keeping our children in mind. You all have kids in the school district. Keep those kids in mind, getting them to school every day on time, and act against the company tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay, the consent agenda. At this point, we are going to just take off number 1, personnel recommendations, and discuss that after closed session. So are there any other discussions about the other 2 remaining items?
I just have a quick question, and since I wasn't here for the discussion about summer school, in just looking quick, it was really good to have the information in there about cost and, cost district. Just sort of want to say out loud that, so obviously we're assuming we're going to have absolutely full enrollment when we're calculating down that number of cost to district, because if we have slots for 25 kids, but only 18 sign up, then, I'm assuming that cost structure is designed to show the best case scenario. If every summer school class is full completely, then the cost to district is X. But it's obviously gonna go up if we don't have each one of those vertical lines. If they're not all full, then the cost to the district goes up.
Right, it depends. A lot of our programs, we're not charging anything.
Right.
And
I just mean
so-
for the ones
Right,
where there's, where it's a
Right.
fee-based program.
And so, obviously, some of them we would have to look at. If only 2 students show up, then I think we have to make that decision. Does it make sense to hold that program? And, again, so we'll look at those break evens, but yes, it's based on, full capacity and then full number of teachers. Obviously, some of them have, if there's 25 students at each grade level, then we have, and there's 3 different grade sections, we have 3 teachers. So there may be some, if we only have, 1 grade level full, or we have a combination, we may have to do, some adjustment that way, but.
And what's the timing for when we'll know that? When does summer school registration have to take place, and what's the deadline for us to know?
What we've talked about is, assuming that the board goes ahead and approves it, then the plan is to start next week getting information out to families regarding registration. I think, did we say
April.
the end of April? So May 1st,
No, April.
April.
Just to clarify, that would be April.
April 30th. So that May 1st, though, we can start taking a look at those numbers and see where we're at.
Because on some of them, it had a low point threshold, like it said if we don't meet X minimum. But it didn't seem to me that was on every one. There were just certain ones where we'd already delineated a low point threshold.
Right.
And I think, we haven't offered anything to this magnitude, so let's kind of see what the enrollment looks like and go from there.
Okay. And obviously, if we approve it, it's going to be communicated every possible way. We know how to do that like half a dozen times.
Yes.
Okay. Not just once through each channel,
Yes.
Okay.
No, we'll use all of our different channels to communicate, and then
multiple times.
periodic send out reminders that the deadline is approaching.
Okay. Just, thank you.
That question
Yeah.
was,
I just wanted to make a quick comment on those 2 items, number 2 and number 3. I think it's great that for a second year in a row, again, we're not raising any school fees. I think that's important for our community to know. And, the return of, let's call it full summer school is very great for our district. I know a lot of parents and community people are grateful that that's going to be back. So I think it's wonderful, if we approve it, that it'll come back.
I would say, it's definitely more summer school than we've had in the past that I can remember at any time that I've had kids in the 201. So I really appreciate the thought that went into this, as I said at last meeting, so happy to support it.
I would like to piggyback that too, because there's a few classes that we are charging for, but there's many that we are not. And so that is a great benefit to our families, especially for the students that really need that summer school. So I also am very happy with the amount of work that went into putting together such a comprehensive summer school program. I hope everyone who's watching looks for that, and whoever, look and see what's, maybe what's best for your students.
And it looks like the fee basically amounts to an activity fee. So I mean, it's really very reasonable
Right.
for anybody, accessible to anybody in the district, which I think is also a huge win and a huge positive all the way across the district.
Okay, any other? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Hold on, I
I'm
got it.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I know, I'm not that quick. Approval of 2014, 2015 school fees and approval of 2014 summer school programs.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Mrs. McMahon.
Ms. Caparelli?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Notbush?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. We will come back to the first one. Okay, the next item is an action item. The board discussed this last week, and it is mostly a housekeeping item, but we had discussed this so that does anybody have any questions about the motion? Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to extend the time frame to complete the superintendent's evaluation from March 31st, 2014 to a date in the near future by mutual agreement of the school board and the superintendent.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion carried. And we will be giving that date as soon as we complete that. And the next item is following our self-evaluation that the board had on February 18th of this year with Barbara Toney of the IASB. The board had a very productive meeting and came to some very professional board agreements, and we updated the previous ones. So does anybody have any questions or comments about the board agreement? That
No.
I do thank Matt for helping proofread that. Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the board agreements prepared by the Board of Education and the superintendent during the self-evaluation meeting of February 18, 2014 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And just as the other board agreements were, we will post that board agreement on our website. Okay, the next item, did you want to talk about?
Yeah,
The board
just-
budget update, input?
Right, but part of our budget and staffing timeline, there's the opportunity for the board to express any areas they would like for us to consider as we're going through our budget development. And in part because we're still gathering that information and meeting with the admin team as well, we're asking that the board delay that till the 25th, and then we will have that conversation at the 25th board meeting.
Okay, so March 25th.
Right.
We'll discuss it at the, okay. Okay, then the next item on the agenda, bus information. And this was something that I had asked to have put on the agenda based on some emails that we received and just some conversations and experiences that some of us have experienced. And obviously, we've heard about that tonight, too. So I guess, I guess I will just kind of start with the discussion. And I would like to find out. I know we've talked about this many times, and certainly, Kim, this doesn't, it's not your problem, but it's.
It is my problem.
Reflected,
It doesn't reflect on you.
Right.
Unfortunately.
It's not your fault.
It's not your fault.
It is my
But I guess my main concern, and obviously it sounds like others, is that we have a bus company that, no matter what we do, is not providing us with the service that we need. And too many of our students are walking or standing on bus corners, and it is just absolutely an unacceptable level of service. So my question was, what can we do about that as of right now? What kind of contractual obligations do we have? And I guess I want to open it up to discussion.
Okay.
So,
Well, first, I'm going to give you a little bit of background about how and why we're with Westway. 2 years ago at this time, first student, we were all set to extend our contract with them, and they decided that our school district was not profitable enough for them, so they forced us out to bid, which at this time of year is what I call the 11th hour. And we were sent our bids out to 13 bus companies. We got bids back from 3. The first student, their bid was an increase of 33.5%. We got a bid from Illinois Central that was almost 39%, and Westway was a 3.6% increase over the rates that we were paying 2 years ago. So, needless to say, when we have a budget of we spent about $607,000, we spent $607,000 last year on regular education transportation. And this year, we're gonna spend roughly about $650,000. So, our contract, if we renew it with Westway, it's tied to CPI, so next year our increase will be 1.7%. That's $11,000 increase. Let's just say we go out to bid and we have a 10% increase, that's a $65,000 increase. If we see bids in the range that we did when we bid 2 years ago at 35%, that's almost $228,000 increase for just our regular ed transportation costs. And we're getting, and I forgot to look that number up, but I think about $40,000 from the state. We spend $600,000, we get about $40,000. So, just so you have a little bit of background. So, and Kevin and I met extensively with Westway 2 years ago about the transition and things like that. At the beginning of the year, you always anticipate a little bit of roughness, getting the routes up and getting everybody transitioned. We had a little bit of roughness at the start of the year. Things got better. I do have to say, I think they did an excellent job during the railroad crossing. And I've talked with Tom O'Sullivan at Westway about that, you guys were able to get our kids to school on time when we had to reroute everybody. What's changed now and why are we having issues? So whatever you did during that period, that's what we want you to continue doing during this period. So I've talked to them numerous times over the last week and a half or 2 weeks, even on Saturday. The parents that have been experiencing issues, I have reached out and contacted them. We are monitoring arrivals and departures from our schools right now. We do have a penalty clause in our contract that I have now implemented. I have instituted that, so we are in penalty mode. Now, I know, again, that doesn't help the parent who's missing work because the bus didn't show up. We've talked about protocols and the need to be on time, that, kids should be out at the bus stop about 5 minutes before that bus stop. I think one of the things that was happening, one of the drivers, wasn't really paying attention to the routing times. And so some days he was early, some days he's late, and so the kids don't quite know, hey, do I need to wait because the bus hasn't gotten here yet, or did I miss it because he was early? So the protocol is that they are not supposed to arrive at a stop early. So if they find that they're getting early, they need to be waiting and actually hit that spot at that stop at the designated pickup time. That's one of the things. The bus company is supposed to be contacting any school where they know they're going to be 10 minutes late so that our principals can get out a parent link. And so those are the types of things that we have in place. I'm keeping track on a daily basis of any issues, and again, we'll be imposing the penalties. Continue to have conversations. They know that we have a meeting tonight, that we've got parents concerned, we've got parents asking us to go out and bid. I will say, anything's possible. We have to give them a 90-day notice, which at this point in time puts us into close to the start of the school year. That transition is very difficult. If you start transitioning your bus operation in June, with again, making sure that the new bus company has drivers, buses, runs your routes and all of those things. So, obviously we can pursue that route if that's really what the board thinks. It's not what I would recommend, but I do recommend that, we're looking at, our contract is up with Westway, and I was going to be presenting tonight the renewal, but I postponed that. But, maybe imposing a few more penalties, putting a couple more penalties in place for next year in the next contract, really reinforcing that, this is a serious issue for us, and, service outside of certain boundaries is just clearly unacceptable. And so that, that's one of the things. So our timeline is very tight. Again, there's no, I have no idea what those bids would come in like, but I was at a meeting with business managers today, and several of them, they don't have CPI clauses in their contracts, and so their transportation companies are coming back to them with double-digit increases for next year. So I think it would be safe for us to assume that we would see at least a 10% increase, if not significantly more, going out to bid. So it really, I think the onus falls on me, my staff, and the principals to make sure that we are aware on a daily basis of what's happening with these buses, and then really reinforcing the service level, making sure it happens.
I have a couple questions. Are the current penalties in our contract significant enough to actually,
Make a difference.
Sting?
I don't know, whatever the right word is, yes,
Yeah.
all of those things.
Let's say, so a route is about $54, $55. So a late AM drop-off is $100 per occurrence. So
That's
that's
more
double
than the
the,
cost of the
almost double the cost of the route. So I think
that
that's
seems substantial.
significant. I think that's significant. Late pickup
Because
is
it
the
sounds
same.
like from the feedback we've received, we had public comment tonight about one bus route from the high school, but it sounds like it's fairly pervasive. My second question then would be,
that
do we know
Route
what's
2
changed?
I know Route 6 did not have a permanent driver. They had several issues, and they had a sub-driver, and so they have given us a permanent driver.
So what, are you getting any feedback from the bus company about what's changed? I mean, they did do yeoman's duty during the train crossing
Yeah,
closure.
I think
and-
some of it is staffing,
Okay.
that.
I'm a little concerned that we have to tell the bus company that they need to follow the pickup schedule. I mean, we are not transportation experts. It worries me that we have to set the standard for them about follow the schedule. I mean, I have a really serious concern about why that would be your responsibility.
Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Shannon, you asked what may have changed, and then the other, last week when we were at the village board meeting, there was a representative from a different bus company. During public comment, he made an appeal for anybody who was looking for a job, they were in need of drivers
see.
and assistants. So I would imagine Westway is probably
Similar.
much
It's
different for
staffing.
them. So I think it ends up being a staffing issue. Because we did find out at one point in time that they were, because of a shortage of drivers, were they doubling up a route?
Yeah, one of the routes was
So
being
we
doubled up.
obviously communicate that can't happen,
Well, and then they have drivers that don't know the route, so the kids are telling them where to stop. That's a little scary. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm very concerned that the school district is having to tell a professional transportation company how to do business, but I mean, a clipboard with the route doesn't seem, with the time and the stop, it just doesn't seem like rocket science. I don't know, we're paying them a lot of money, even though, yes, I remember we were very fortunate not to have those significant increases, but I mean.
And we had, and just, so nobody forgets, we had issues with First
Yep.
Student as well. And right toward the time when they told us that we weren't profitable enough for them was when we were imposing penalties with them too, for things like bus tapes and some other things. And we had an issue with them and the way they were billing us. And so, we had to actually recalculate all the bills to make sure we were being billed appropriately. So, I can't say that, that's, while I don't want to have to babysit the transportation company, clearly I have other, things that I can spend my time doing. That is one of my responsibilities, and so, sometimes that's something that you have to, and again, when you see some of those things that seem sporadic, and sometimes it's all of a sudden you realize, hey, this has been an issue.
What kind of commitment have you gotten from the bus company related to your last several conversations with?
Well, they have had conversations with all of their drivers again about what, about the arrival times, the routing times, what the expectation is, that they're following the route. Again, trying to be proactive. We know that there's bad weather predicted for tomorrow morning's commute. So I have communicated with them about, again, reinforce the expectation. They're supposed to be arriving between 20 minutes and a half hour early to the bus barn to be able to start their route so that they, should be able to get out in front of any traffic delays. If they are running more than, 10 minutes or more late, they're supposed to be contacting everybody so we can get a parent link out. And, so that's one of the things that we're doing to make sure, just kind of reiterate what the expectation is. Then obviously we could have them come and, meet with the board. They do know, I have shared with them that, there is some concern by the board, by me, that, they are really the company that can fulfill and, meet our expectations, and that they need to step it up.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that the entire district is sort of always leaning on you, and you are not really the person that has control over whether this is successful or not. I don't know how everybody else feels, but if God forbid anything like this continues over the next couple of weeks, I absolutely think that they should come to a meeting and be accountable for their performance, because it's not your performance. You're the sort of the don't shoot the messenger, right? Kim is don't shoot the messenger. She is though. And parents are very angry, which I can understand. And
I try and make sure that I call the parents too, so that they know that I'm aware that what we're working on, what we're trying to do. And I've asked those parents that I've called, and so Mr. Svitak, please call me. Let me know if that bus is late. And let's not even assume that I get information from the school. You call me directly.
That was going to be one of the things that I mentioned, Kim, was that, my concern is that for every call you get, there might be other
Right.
calls that you're not getting. I know, Route 5 last week from the junior high was late twice. And as Shannon said, the kids are, showing them the route home. There was a 6th grader that walked from, Williams all the way back to Cass because they missed the stop.
And I was not.
No,
aware.
of course.
You don't
Because,
always know.
And I assume, well, she probably knows. I'm sure Kim knows, I'm not gonna bother her with this. But that was twice last week, and when I got a call saying, my bus is late, it didn't show up at the junior high until about 20 minutes to 4. And the kids are outside. I said, are you inside or outside? Outside. The doors are locked. There's teachers out here with us. Great, that's perfect. But the kids are waiting outside for the bus whenever the bus shows up.
And that's at the dismissal time?
Right.
Yeah, and we've
right.
taught, again, we had lengthy conversation about that. All the buses, there's really no reason for those buses not to be there on
Already.
time. So they are monitoring that. The other thing too that's important for people to know, there's GPS on those buses. So we can go back and look at when
Where they were.
a bus is making a stop and at what time.
Yeah.
So if there are concerns that way, we can investigate. But again, those are $100 occurrences. And so, but it's incumbent on the schools to let me know that that's happening, and we're imposing those. We've started to impose those. I mean, you don't want to have that type of relationship with your vendor. You want to have a good, positive working relationship. And so you try to avoid those and be able to resolve those issues. But we are at that point where this is what we're doing. And so either they're going to get it right, or they're gonna say, hey, this isn't working for us, you guys are too demanding, and they'll force us out to bid. And next year, or we'll evaluate that, hey, the service isn't, and we'll be out in December to bid.
But speaking to that, Kim, if I'm out of work for a day, I miss a day or two, or I'm out for a week, they wouldn't sit someone at my desk that didn't know what they were doing. So, the substitute drivers, or, I know maybe they're short drivers, but every driver should know the routes that they're taking. I mean, if it's a substitute driver, they should still know the route, or at least know the town.
Yeah, well, and that's very difficult because, again, they have several school districts in the areas, like District 99 uses them. I think maybe 58, there's a cooperative of 4 school districts that use them, so Downers Grove, I think Woodridge, Darien, as well as us in this area. So I can't say that their sub is gonna know our route.
Okay, a clipboard.
Right,
With a
oh,
corner
exactly.
and a time.
Right,
I don't need
exactly.
them to know, I don't need them to know before they sit behind the wheel, but
Right.
I sure need them to know when they start moving the
Right,
bus.
exactly.
I mean, maybe it's something that they need to restructure. I don't know what the solution is, whether they have X number of subs to work this district, X, instead of bouncing them all over the place, maybe they change the structure of what they're doing. And, I don't think it doesn't seem to me to be that difficult, And maybe it is, I could be wrong, but, I understand why people are as angry as they are. I certainly get it.
Especially with the winter we're having.
Right.
I mean, that's just,
And that's the other thing. We came off of 2 years of really no snow, mild winter. This year, the weather has been horrific, and so you take that and it just compounds everything.
yep.
Are you?
I'm done.
Okay, I first of all have to say thank you very much for giving us that history, because I think maybe the community doesn't know. But I guess I'm gonna go way out on this limb, and I just think that there's gotta be a 47 strikes and you're out rule, because if we're on the verge of potentially signing a contract with them and their service has been subpar at best, then I find it interesting that, can we go back and go every single thing that they didn't do, apply that deduction to? Well, we can't, because I agree with you, we want to have a good relationship with our vendors, but I think this is very different than maybe some of our other vendors. And again, Kim, I hope you know me well enough that this is not reflected on you, but I think that there's so many problems here, and I think it's kind of mind-numbing that we're sitting here trying to figure out how the bus company should run their company. Because that's not our job. We pay these people really a lot of money, and we should expect some minimum level of service. And I know, for instance, the other day, and all of us at this table here are parents, so we've experienced our own things, and we've heard from the community over and over and over again, and there's probably many more stories that we don't even know about. But like the first day of ISATs, there's so much planning that goes into that, and, get a good night's sleep and do all this, and that was a complete nightmare. And you've got, I heard that from a number of different places. So you've got kids walking to school, and the announcement didn't come out from the school till 7:01. The bus was supposed to be picking up the kids 45 minutes earlier. And so I know I heard from some kids that now everybody at school is sitting around waiting to take the ISATs. Other kids are running into school, maybe some of the teachers had started. So now this is just a horrible way to start a day. And So obviously, every single thing broke down. And for me, I just feel like, I feel very, very strongly that if you have a company that is not doing what the only thing they're supposed to do, then frankly, I would love to ask to go out to bid. And I know that's the last thing that I know you need to do, but I just can't hear any more stories like this. This is, because here's what you got. You got a kid that goes to wait at the bus stop, and they go there 5 minutes early like they're supposed to. Now the bus doesn't come. So now what does a kid do? I mean, I've experienced this in my own home. So does the kid stand there and wait, or does he go home? Because now the bus might come, and then the bus just leaves. Or if they come early, so now it's this game every day in every household. Do you go out early? Do you wait? Do you come back? What if a kid doesn't have somebody to come back to? What if no one's home? What if the parent doesn't know where they are? There's so many factors in here that this is way too much work for you. I don't anybody. We're trying to tell this bus company how to do their job. That's all they have to do. And again, it's mind-numbing to think that there isn't a chart in there. And there's been numerous instances where no bus ever shows up. There was a specific instance, we were trying to take a field trip with the high school. They kept calling the bus company, oh, we'll be there in 10 minutes, be there in 10 minutes. So they're outright lying, and it never showed up. So there's so much that we rely on for these buses. And I just feel like if we're evaluating an employee, I don't mean us, anybody, and they have failed like 97% of the time, and that's not, I know that's an exaggeration, that's too many. You've got kids standing on street corners, and I think that's dangerous, absolutely dangerous scenario, and I just can't even imagine what would happen if you got a couple of 6th or 7th graders or 4th graders walking to school one day in the cold and the rain and the weather, because these kids don't know what else to do. So now, since I'm out on this limb, I might as well go further. I know there are some districts that have their own buses. I have no idea what that costs. I imagine that's not cheap either. I know, I could see your face.
Out of the pot and into the fire, Kim.
Something's got, to me, something's got to be
Okay,
done.
well,
Something's.
first of all, buses are very expensive, and I cannot put together our own busing between now and the start of school. I'll just tell you that. And I, again, like to work from the positive, but that would be a major undertaking and a miracle if it happened. But number one, we don't have any, you need to have some place to locate those buses. Okay, we don't have any place to locate those buses when they're not in use. It's hiring the drivers, you've got to be able to go out and purchase them or lease them and, all of that stuff and get that set up. So
I'm just asking the question because it seems like, you've got, if we're only limited to X number of buses.
mhm. And you have to have enough, remember, we have field trips and athletic events and all those things that, go, we kids go 40 miles or 50 miles from here for athletic events. We have to have enough drivers to be able to run our regular routes and to be able to get kids to all their athletic and extracurricular activities. So we have to have enough buses and enough drivers for that too. We're a very small district, and I'm really not sure, again, the economies of scale that we can achieve just on how small we are and the need for the amount of equipment that we would need to be able to service our district.
But the problem is, and again, I know I'm speaking of the choir, they're not servicing us. They're not getting kids. There was a Saturday event not that long ago that the kids there was no bus. So,
But
how many?
again, I don't know what Saturday that was. People are not bringing that to my attention. So I think it's unfair to me to be able to manage this if I am not aware of what's going on.
But I guess my point to you is I don't think it's you
Well,
as a
but it-
business manager
well, but it
shouldn't
is.
have to, because there should be some level of there should be some level of service that we can,
Well, I understand
Demand.
that. I understand. We shouldn't have to deal with that.
Right.
But when it does happen, people have to make me aware. And I don't know how many times I can say it, but if I am not aware, I'm definitely aware of the field trip to the Paramount, but that's the only one that I know of.
well, and again, let's just assume for argument's sake that there's there's 50% out there that you don't know about. It's still happening. And that, I'm telling you, I have no problem with you and what you're doing. It's just a shame that this much of your time has to be spent on it. But I guess the question is, for us as a district, is to find a way to fix the problem. And I know you, Kevin and Kim, you've sat down with the owner of the company many times, and I don't know what else it's gonna take to get that done. I just, that's what I'm saying.
Kevin, I have a question. In light of Kim's comments about not having visibility, some of these things, has there been fairly clear directive out to all of the buildings and coaches? It's not just the principals, right? There's activities that take place when principals aren't present, whether it's a coach or an arts teacher, or someone who's really the ultimate adult responsible. I mean, have you had an opportunity yet to give very clear direction to the entire adult community in our buildings to say, we need to make sure that this is consolidated in one place?
Typically, our, communication is through the building administrators.
Sure.
So we make them aware that they need to, make him aware as soon as they're aware of a late bus, a no-show, anything like that. And honestly, I couldn't answer the question to you if that's then, being clearly communicated to athletic directors and coaches and so
Right.
forth.
I mean, because certainly the principal's there when school starts or when school ends, but there's a whole myriad of other things going on, right, where it may just happen, the teacher deals with it, maybe they, it's, well, the bus finally came, and, they go on to whatever else the
Right.
rest of their complicated
Right.
lives entails, so maybe we
Right, and we
would
can
benefit from a
reach out.
strong
Right.
communication.
And that's, right, and that's something, depending upon the direction from the board, that's something, though, definitely, that a written communication will go out to all of our coaches, sponsors, so that they understand that, on their end, you're absolutely right. For that coach, it may be the one time they've experienced something like that.
To them, it's not an epidemic.
Right, but it's, happening here, it's happening there, and it's impacting several other, in several other areas, but, we can get that message out that we're monitoring this, we need to stay on top of it, and so you need to communicate that to us.
I think one of the things, as I'm just kind of hearing everyone's thoughts on this, is it just seems to me as trying to make a decision of whether we would even go out to bid for this or not is, we really need some sort of tallies or data or something of how much is this occurring, what kind of trends are we seeing? Because we all get isolated stories from parents, multiple stories sometimes, and it's not that they're not true or not, but it just, is it only happening here? Is it happening across the district? Is this systemic? Is it not? And so, getting the word out to everybody in the buildings to report this so that we can tally it and really assess it, because I'm having a difficult time saying we should go out to bid and possibly end up paying 30% more for transportation because we have complaints without having it really quantified. So that's one thing. And a couple of things came to my mind as I was sitting here, and that was, is there a way, just to have a quick link on the website, report a bus problem, and you click that link and just, something, shoots a description of the problem, and, it's easy for...
Pertinent details
Yeah,
for
just something
tracking.
brief, but it's something that you can let us know, let you guys know what happened, even if you don't call. The last thing I want to do in the morning is stop and make a phone call, or I'll say, I'll call later, and then later in the day I'll say, I'll call tomorrow, and then the week goes by. So, sometimes having another way of getting that to you in a quick format might be an option to gather more data. The other thing is we talk about parent link, and I was wondering, do we have any sort of student link? Do we have mobile phone numbers for kids on a certain bus route so that you can send them a text on their phone that says your bus is running 15 minutes late, or, so that they get the information while they're standing out there, or, there's a problem with your bus, it won't be there today, or something, so they know what's going on, because so many kids have the capability to get that information, outside of the parent loop. And that might be something to look at as well, because there's a communication piece here that is a big problem for students whose parents may go to work, or,
Right.
they're kind of just left there to make it to school, assuming they're gonna catch the bus appropriately, so.
With regards to the student link, I mean, parent link is, the system that we use, the software that we use, and it is capable of something like that. The question is whether or not we have that data. Because what we do, obviously, is during registration, as parents give us their phone numbers and emails, that goes into Skyward, and then we're able to pull that data into Parent Link. So the only question would be what type of information we have at the student level. And definitely, if we think that that's type of communication is something that we would like, as we look at our registration forms, going into next year, it'd be very easy to get that information. It doesn't mean that we can't get it now, but it would mean that, we'd have to collect that from students, and they'd have to submit that to us, but, it's
Any way
possible.
that parents can, is there just an option for parents to be able to load that information in Skyward themselves?
Let me check on that and see.
If the field is there and, you
Yeah,
can
that's
add to
the
your
question.
profile or something?
So are you saying that Parent Link would then call two numbers, push that message out to parent and kids?
Yeah, I'd be more,
Right.
depending on the age of your student, obviously elementary students may not have phones and
Right,
that sort of
sure.
thing, but certainly junior high and high school, if your child doesn't have one, another child at the bus stop probably does.
And word gets
And,
spreads, yeah.
So that is one way for them to know while they're standing out there and it's cold or it's raining or whatever, whether to wait or whether to go home or something like that.
The way Parent Link works is, it's almost like little file folders, and you click on, like if you just want to send it to parents of one building, you can, or the entire district, but then there would be a student file as well.
Right.
That you'd be able
So you
to,
could have like students bus route 6 or students bus route whatever.
because that's how we've created route lists for parents, because I don't know if that was last year or the year before, there were fender benders, but we kind of had a rash of fender benders, and so just trying to reach out to parents and notify them of that. Is this a possibility, and Kim, this is as much for you to respond to as the board, but, I agree with Joel in terms of the data. I will tell you that Westway has been very much more responsive since Kim has really communicated the level of concern the community is having, the board is having, and even their plan for tomorrow morning. We haven't seen that level of planning on their part, and so they're very nervous, and they're very aware of our expectations, especially going into tomorrow. Does it make sense between now and March 25th if we collect that data? Because I'm pretty confident that between now and March 25th, we're going to see their A game. And so we're going to find out if their A game is good enough, And so is that enough time to take a look at what the problems are and then bring that to the board, and then the board can consider
Well,
it as well?
how will we take a look at what the problems are if they're on their A game and there may not be any problems?
Well, then that
would be my concern.
I think that's,
I think what you're saying is, I think that's a great idea, and I completely agree with what Joel is saying, is that we need to gather the data, find out if it's one area or if it's several areas. Are there just pockets of time, pockets of, what are the locations? Like Joel, that is a significant difference in dollars, that to go with those that's a significant difference. It's not a pittance, it's a lot of money. And, on one hand, you might say, well, you get what you pay for, but that's not true, because we had another bus company that fell flat on their face not very long ago. So, I guess I just, I want to know that they're not going to be on their A game for the next 2 weeks, that they're going to be on their A game, for the duration, because I don't want to see this for 2 weeks. I want to see them get it right for the rest of this school year. And, if we do sign another contract with them, that they can get it right. This is not, like Marie said, this is all they have to do. This is the only thing they do, and they should be doing it brilliantly, and they're not.
Right.
And I think part of that would be, again, looking at reworking that contract, looking at the penalties. And then I would also suggest we take a look at that 90-day window as well.
Right.
And shorten that up so that, that doesn't tie the district's hands as well.
Right.
So,
Well, and I think the other thing that we could do is, again, obviously, right after the start of school, we evaluate. We know that the first few days, we have to let things, kind of settle in and get all the routes and kinks worked out. But, look at that contract in, the end of September. Look again at the end of October and November, so that by December, we know, okay, yes, their service, it meets our expectations, or no, it doesn't, and that we're out to bid at that time frame next year. And it, again, the onus falls on me to make sure that, that they're meeting our expectations for the rest of this school year.
Board members that haven't spoken.
Yeah, a couple thoughts. One, I do think back, 2 years ago with First Student, nightmare. for us personally, at least once a week, and lots of times more than once a week, we'd have all the kids pile into our car, and we'd take them, because it's, 20, 30 minutes after the bus should have been there, and we're giving them a ride. And so one of my big concerns is, hey, like you just said, okay, we walk away, we go to someone else, that's no guarantee. So what do we do? If we can stiffen the penalties, things like that, encourage them to keep bringing their A game because they can't afford not to, that kind of thing, that's great. I think I really like the student link idea. I think the biggest catch to that's going to be how often do we know it's running late? There's a lot of times we don't know about it after
Right.
the fact,
Yeah,
much
right.
less in advance.
Again, that's a communication that I've had with them,
So-
that it is their responsibility to make sure that we are called if that, bus is running,
Right.
10 minutes or more late, that they've got to let us know so we can get that communication out.
So I think a question I would have is, and I don't expect there's an answer tonight, but maybe something we could research or whatever, is really just to say, no matter who we go with, at the end of the day, if that bus isn't there, we've got a problem. The kids can't get to school, or they're going to school and they shouldn't be in bad conditions, whatever. Is really just to say, are there any other creative interim solutions? Like if we find out a bus didn't make it, I'm not saying we should be doing our own busing, but are there any other resources we could look into that's, do we call cabs and have the cabs bill the bus company? Something, a way to get the kids to school, because the penalties are our motivator, but they don't fix the problem if the bus isn't there. And that's really, like Chris said earlier tonight, hey, my kid needs to get to school at the end of the day. So, like I said, I'm not expecting we have the answer now, but I'm just wondering if other districts, what other kinds of things are available. I know there's kids that take cabs for other reasons sometimes.
The cab drivers have to have a certain license and things like that, so I'm not sure, if that's a good alternative to investigate. I'm not sure how readily available taxi cabs at the last minute to get kids to school would be in the morning, but it's certainly something we could look into.
Yeah, and really I just mean along that vein, not, and just,
Right.
the number one problem is the kids aren't there. The rest is just how, can we motivate them? If the bus company isn't getting it done, no matter who that bus company is there something else we could do?
Well, and having been a working parent with children who rode the bus, I understand. I would hope that parents have a backup game plan if they have to leave for work, and, so that their student does have an alternate, maybe a neighbor or somebody else that, they could look to who might give them a ride to school or things like that as well.
Now, something else I do want to say about Westway is, like I say, First Student was horrible when we had them on our route. But Westway, I mean, last year when my daughter was on the bus, it was always on time. The driver was wonderful. It was a consistent driver. He was great with the kids. We had conversations with him. He was a great guy, and we were very, very happy with it. This year, my daughter's not on the bus, but as far as I can tell, it still looks like our route is like clockwork. I mean, within a very narrow window, it looks like that bus is out there every day. So, I mean, there is a part of it where I'm saying, how rampant is this? I mean, we don't know the answer because we don't have all the data. We don't get everything reported, but are there a handful of routes that are regularly a problem? Is this widespread? We don't know. But I do want to give them credit for at least some, because it looks like, I mean, I don't know if the route going by me is atypical or not, but I don't think those families are complaining. So.
Well, I would say that definitely have the administrators, step it up and keep a better track, because obviously they know whenever a bus is late coming in the morning. They also know whenever a bus is late getting there, and I do know that the buses have been late. Sounds like $100 is a lot of money for a penalty, and I know you want to have a good working relationship, but $650,000 contract, if the bus is late 50 times, that's $5,000, right? 50 times is completely unacceptable in a school year, and to only get whacked $5,000 for 50 times on a $650,000 contract, you're not going to care about that $5,000. Okay, that's just me. These are, students waiting out here in the corners that have to be picked up. I would think an escalating scale. The first 5 or 6 times you're late, it's $100. The next 5 times you're late after that, it's $200. The next 5 times you're late after that, it's $500. Make them want to bring their A game every single time. I understand stuff happens. They're mechanical buses, they break down. You get bad weather, things happen. That's why you have to have some penalties that are just minor, but the ones that shouldn't be happening are the drivers that don't know the routes, and the kids are directing. Excuse me. I mean, it's just, I've heard all the stories too, and I just think, if you want them to pay attention, you've got to make sure that the penalty clause is going to make them pay attention. And $100 a time, I mean, they can be late 60 times, they can be late 100 times. It's still not hitting them hard enough. Okay, and I don't want to take money from them, but you have to make them, take notice. Okay, us talking about it should help them take notice. I hope they are watching this right now, but,
I will direct them to the podcast.
Yeah, please do, okay? I mean, I know, I don't remember the bus company that was before First Student. I think it was Septran. I didn't really have any issues with them, but I know other people in the district had issues with them too. So I understand this stuff happens, but at the same time, we have to send a very strong message that it's A game every day, or we will be forced to do something else. So.
I have one other question. What happens if they say, you know what, you are too high maintenance and we're not going to bid? And we are left, let's just say we send out 13 bids and nobody bids. Because we're legally responsible to provide busing. So what do you do? I mean, obviously somebody will bid and it's going to cost us, right?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I've never encountered a situation like that. I've had encountered situations where you go out to bid and either you get possibly not as many bids as you would like, or the bids come in higher
Right.
than anticipated. And then you do take a look at the bid specs and see if there's anything that possibly could be adjusted or tweaked. And then you send it out again and see where you're at. But I don't think I've ever had a situation where nobody
Bid it all, right? I mean, I agree, I think that's a great idea, but, again, I know that you're treading, it's a tricky wicket. This is a tricky wicket, so. But, it's about getting the kids to school. I mean, they're contracted to do that, so, they've got to have their feet held to the flame, I guess.
My concern, I guess I go back to it again, is that if we have, whatever the cost is, if the bus doesn't show up, it could be free. And the last thing I want to do is spend any extra money, but, you know, I just feel really strongly about this, that I can't, you know, I can't condone this kind of behavior anymore by a company that's all they're supposed to do. And you, Kim, or one of the people in your office, they should not be spending this kind of time. And what I want to make sure that we talk about too is like, okay, we could put something in place for 2 weeks. Anybody can do anything for 2 weeks. And if they, especially if they're listening to this and they know that we're, you know, they're gonna go get their $600,000 contract. And so they'll do everything, and then the minute they get the contract signed, it's back to square one. And I feel, what I feel is, you know, is that it's almost, if it's not reported, then it's not real. And I feel like sometimes in the mornings, you know, like one thing Joel's saying, you know, you might not make that call, or if it's, you know, you just don't pick up that phone or something, or if the call isn't made till whatever. It's interesting, I just had this conversation a little while ago with some kids about, you know, talking about the parent link. I don't know of many young kids nowadays that even ever check their emails. So I love to hear ideas, but you know, what are the, so now we're not only putting the onus on you and the parents, now we're putting the onus on the kids to go check their emails. And I get it, I like the idea that if we know, and it's been reported, and it's been told to these people, and now the kid can stand there and check their emails and maybe see if there's something there. But I guess I just find it, we've spent all this time talking about this, and these are adults running a business. You both have spent a lot of time talking to them and making sure that they communicate and do all this and do all this, and yet they're not. And so I sit here very, very frustrated. You know, our own family has had many times when kid comes back home, bust in shop, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know what we have kind of, if we have collectively come up with any kind of ideas. It scares me to think that what happens in the next 2 weeks is gonna determine if we have a contract with them again.
Well,
I'm just kind of,
right, the only reason you know, and we can make the window, we can extend that, but 2 weeks only because, as Kim pointed out, there does come a point in time where it becomes progressively more difficult to make that transition to a new company, you know, because there's a certain amount of time that you have to go out for, well, first pull the bid specs together, and then a certain amount of time you have to go out for bid, the timeline, and then, you know, review the bids and so forth. So there's a little bit of a delay there, and then bringing the company on board. And so that's why, you know, we have an idea of March 25th, and only meaning that if for the next 2 weeks, if they don't understand the sense of urgency and they can't do it for 2 weeks, then that's our answer. You know, I mean, why would we want to stay with them if they can't even, you know? But it doesn't mean that, you know, March 26th, you know, we go back to zero, or we're not going to hold them accountable, or we're still not going to consider possibly going out to bid. It's just kind of, you know, Joe pointed out, we really don't have, you know, the concrete data, you know, to take a look at. So do we open up a window when we are going to review data? You know, is it 2 weeks, or do we extend it a little bit longer? But by no means does it mean that, you know, March 25th looks good, so then at our next board meeting, the proposal comes to the board to renew. I mean,
And do you have an idea? I mean, right now, they collect data as the buses come in, I'm assuming, and somehow document it. Is it a uniform procedure kind of for all the schools to make the data collection
I'll give
simple,
them
that
all-
sort of thing?
I'll give them all a form.
You know, so that we can see, like, you know,
Yeah.
out of so many, you know, runs this week, you know, 3 of them were late or whatever, and that sort of thing, just so it's streamlined, simple for everybody, and easy to do, and to let our parents know that we are collecting this information, so that they can then, if they have a problem, to know that they need to let us know. They need to contact the school, either if we're able to do some sort of quick link on the website, or by phone call, or note to the teacher or whatever, that we are looking for this information.
Probably because I think a lot of parents will get tired of reporting it too, and just won't just give up on it. But I do like the idea of collecting data. I think that's a good idea. But I also agree with Marie that, I'm worried, okay, so they're on their best behavior, and then we give them a new contract, what kind of message does that send? And then they go back to their old behaviors. So I guess that's concerning
But it's
too.
gonna be incumbent upon us to make sure that that doesn't happen, that instantly we're on top of that. So, I mean, we know that there's a lot of frustration out there, and so that responsibility is for me to make sure that we're on top of that.
And maybe don't tell them we're watching them.
Well,
Don't let
I'm
them.
gonna
I
tell
think
them
they
to
know.
watch this.
Don't tell them to watch this, because they'll know we're monitoring them, and then,
Well, that's good. That keeps them on their toes.
If
they're good
we
for
don't
2
go out
weeks,
to
and
bid
then-
sometime
Well,
in
I mean, I
Keep monitoring them.
we may
I
not be
think
able to
you
award that
collect data on them.
contract till the end of April,
I have to
beginning
look.
of May, and then,
Yeah, we can take a look. But I was gonna say, Mara, again, the checks and balances for us as well is, we've already talked about, possibly looking at a different structure for penalties, as was suggested, or at least stiffening the penalties. Also, that 90-day window ends up, that's, right now it's benefiting Westway more than it's benefiting us. So there are things too that we can do with the contract so that,
The renewal or a new contract to go out for bid?
the renewal.
Okay.
Yeah, the renewal.
I guess, I'm just gonna, I know I'm beating a dead horse, but I think one thing Gary brought up was a good point. For them, 50 times is a drop in the bucket. So it's almost like they're not doing it now, and we have that in the contract. What do we do to move forward to finish out the school year? Because, if we don't institute the penalties till March, when it's almost too late to do anything about it, is there some retroactive penalty that they would have to pay? And of course, that's probably never gonna be in a contract. But I guess I just, again, with the utmost 100% respect, everything that you guys have done so far, still, the company they're just not doing their job. So I guess I wonder, how are you gonna find more time in your day to do this? You guys have said this over and over and over to the bus company, and they still can't get it, and they don't tell us. They don't communicate to us, like, hardly ever. Many of the times that the notices go out, it's because a parent called, and then somebody called. To me, I don't think I've ever seen, hey, we just heard from the bus company, and they're running late. It's a kid told the parent called the school sent out thing, and it's 45 minutes later. So, I mean, I guess, I might, be the only one that feels this way, but I feel very strongly that, they're not doing their job.
Yeah,
So,
we could.
well, I think maybe one of the things we should do is have Tom O'Sullivan from Westway come to our next meeting. and
yeah, fine with
Share
me.
your concerns and, have him share with us how he's going to ensure that they provide the level of service we expect.
Well, that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
That's good.
Okay, so what time, it's 8, tell them to watch the 8:03 point.
It's only 8:03.
Okay, so has everybody spoken that wants to add anything? Okay. Kim, I think you're doing a fantastic job. All right. Superintendent's report.
A couple things. One is the EPERT update. Anticipating on the 25th board meeting, we'll bring forward our EPERT reports for the board to review. And this is park update, and this is just to kind of bring the board up to speed. There's approximately 30 superintendents of high school and unit districts that we've been meeting. And it's in light of the park test that the state is transitioning to, and they're piloting this year. They've randomly selected some grade levels and schools, and for 201 at the elementary level and junior high, we have a couple of classes that will be piloting the park exam. But we're collectively making a statement to the state superintendent and then to the our state legislatures as well, that we do have some concerns about park, and it's not that we are against the comprehensive K-12 assessment, to support accountability, as long as it's aligned to college and career readiness, it's aligned to the Common Core. And then the other piece that really for unit districts and high school districts that we're concerned about is that it's also a metric for college admissions. And one of the things that will occur with the park is that the ACT, right now, the state's saying that will no longer fund ACT testing. And right now, all of our juniors take the ACT as part of the Prairie State. I can tell you that there are some students who are taking that exam that normally probably would not take that exam, and they're finding out that college is a real opportunity for them. And because if you go to a national testing day where students are paying for it, it then ends up becoming a deterrent. And so we're able to provide that opportunity for all of our students. Our students are invested in that test because they see ACT as motivating and meaningful. And so what we're suggesting to the State Board of Ed is that as they're looking at their piloting, that they possibly look at the implementation of park. If they would, entertain of possibly looking at other. ACT actually does have a testing program that they're developing K through 12 that obviously universities would also look at. Our concern is that universities, they won't know what park is, and it's not meaningful to them. And so, again, for our students, where's the investment for them as well? And so there, we've put together a position statement and our suggestions, our concerns, and we're, setting up a meeting with the state superintendent. We're also reaching out to our state legislators, and we're hoping that we can influence a little bit of what's going on with the park assessment. So I just want to bring you up to speed on that. And then the last thing I have is just in terms of communications, just again, a reminder, we have another informational meeting, referendum meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at Miller Elementary School in the gym. And that there is an election on March 18th, and just to encourage people to get out and vote.
Related to communication, I know I've heard a little bit from some junior high parents. The course selection email went out, and then there was a correction email that went out, and I just wanted to mention that the initial email sort of led parents to believe that we were back to the 2 electives. Mm-hmm. And then the correction email went out, and no, that isn't really true. And I think that was a little bit of a rub,
okay.
Right? I mean, everybody sort of had a hard time swallowing the 1 elective pill to begin with, and then here we come zooming into next school year, and kind of, I just think that was a little bit of a miss on our part to not have that be clear, because I think it opened some old wounds and,
Mm-hmm.
Made people remember again that they didn't love it to begin with. And so I just wanted to mention that, because I've gotten an email or two. I just had a couple parents that have commented at some other events that I was at, and I think that what we have in place of the 2 electives is fantastic. However, there are still, some wounds associated with having that second elective lost.
And that brought up another point. The junior high did send out a survey to parents, and once the junior high gets that information, those survey results will be shared with the board as well, so you'll see those results.
And that's, I think the email says it's open until March 21st, I think, something like that. So the survey, results. Okay, are you done, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay, are there any board reports?
I have one. Over the weekend, our junior high Destination Imagination team, which has been together now for 3 years, in 4th and 5th grade, they went down and they competed in the regions, and they won first place in the regions, and then they went on and did very well in the state tournament. Now that same team in the junior high they tried a new type of challenge instead of doing the same one again, and they took it and they went and they took 3rd place this year, so congratulations to them. They're still going to state, but more importantly, they won an award called the Da Vinci Award for having the most creative presentation. So hands off to them.
Very cool.
Yes, that was a wonderful day, and it's interesting because it's funded by the parents, yet they're out there representing Westmont Junior High, and it's represented very well by some talented people. So, yeah, it's a very good moment. Okay, any other board reports?
Just a reminder, I think the High School Musical will be between our.
Oh, yes, it
This
is.
is
Yes.
the
And
last-
before our next meeting, that's right.
Last meeting.
Yes, 21st,
So,
22nd,
I want to give
23rd.
that a plug.
High School Musical.
Hairspray,
Yes.
and it's the weekend of the 21st, and I'm not
Right,
sure which day.
21st, 22nd,
Oh,
23rd.
yeah, all 3 days.
And for tickets, people should contact the high school. Anything else? Okay, then, are there any public comments? The chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining, personnel issues, student discipline, and probable litigation.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Knappbush?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes?
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Caparelli?
Yes.
Okay, so now I see right in front of us on our, there's a symphonic band concert at the high school March 12th at 7 o'clock. And there is high school STEM night, the science, technology, March 13th, junior high at 6:30. So those two other things. And there will be a vote after closed. chair will entertain a motion to approve the personnel recommendations as presented.
So moved.
Seconded.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mrs. Notbush,
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton.
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Caparelli.
Yes.
And the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.